Squid Game. Every ending clue you missed. Hey there, and welcome to Netflix Master. Today, we're talking about one of the hottest trending Netflix series at the moment, Squid Game. So, if you haven't watched the series already, a spoiler alert is officially in effect. Squid Game pulled off an incredibly shocking twist at the end of the series where we all discover that the person behind the sick games was the old, terminally ill Il-nam. Who would have guessed that? Pretty sure you didn't. But this was not the plot that the writer of the Squid Game decided to bring in at the last minute. Rather, right from the start of the series, there were a handful of clues that pointed to the fact that Il-nam was the brain behind this all along. It's only after you watch the last episode where Gi-hun discovers Il-nam's original plan that it'll all make sense. According to Il-nam, he and his friends came up with the Squid Game after they became bored with life, despite all the wealth they had accrued. Life just didn't seem fun to Il-nam and his pals anymore. And their solution to this? The Squid Game. It's sick, we know. So why did Il-nam then decide to take part in the games and risk his life if he was behind it all along? Well, if there was one thing that he was honest about from the beginning, it was that he had a tumor in his brain, which meant that he was dying. Il-nam thought taking part in the games would be a fun way to exit the world. And that brings us to our first clue. In episode 1, while everyone was shocked to their bones and literally scared to death during the green light red light game, one person was all too excited to play the horror game, and that person was Il-nam. The excitement on his face as he took giant strides towards the finish line was unmistakable. Not only did Il-nam confess to knowing the game all too well, but he also seemed to anticipate when the giant female robot would stop the game and look back. And then he also knew the lyrics to the doll's haunting song as well. Also, if you take a look at this shot during the game, where we're given a look at the giant robot's point of view, you'll notice that, unlike other players who are viewed by the robot with a green light, Il-nam and those very close to him don't have this green glow around them. Most likely, the robot was programmed not to pick up the old man and those very close to him for obvious reasons. So, he really was having fun out there. Il-nam's game number is another significant clue in the series. As number 001, it indicates that he was the very first person to be selected for the game, and that's very odd. For starters, Il-nam doesn't belong to the same age group as the other 455 contestants. While others seem to fall within the age bracket of 20 to 45, Il-nam is well advanced in age, and clearly not fit for the physically challenging aspects of the game. No one would have loved to have him on their team for the tug-of-war game, even though he had special insights on how to win the game, which is yet another clue to his real character in the game. More on that later. When Junho, the police officer who sneaks into the game in search of his brother, breaks into the frontman's library, he finds a book with the identity of all the contestants. However, the page for number 001, Il-nam's number, is conspicuously missing. Instead, the book starts with number 002. This makes sense, as the creator of the games did not need to keep his own details. His lack of fitness for the physical nature of the Squid Games is further highlighted when the riot breaks out at night. While gangster Chang Dok-soo and his team members set out to kill other contestants, Il-nam, who would have foreseen the event, smartly climbed to the top of the beds where he was safe from the fracas going on down below. But more significantly, it was after he cried out for the riots to end that the frontmen elected to send the guards in to put an end to the riot, a move that was clearly done to protect the creator of the game. Now let's take you back to the honeycomb game, which gave another interesting clue. After number 067 discovered that the next game would involve sugar, Cho Sang-woo, number 218, quickly figured out that it would be the honeycomb game, and he smartly chose the triangle shape. In the end, Il-nam and Gi-hun were left to pick between the umbrella and the star. It's not surprising that knowing what the game would be, Il-nam chose to stick with the star, leaving Gi-hun with the far more difficult umbrella shape. The star was a much easier shape to cut than the umbrella, as it didn't have any curves and thin regions. And although the triangle was obviously the easiest shape to pick, Il-nam figured he could still go with the star to protect his cover, as the star had short, straight lines and was the next easier option after the triangle, which had already been picked by Cho Sang-woo. Then there was the tug-of-war game. It's not surprising that Il-nam would risk his life to play the tug-of-war game, as not only was he well acquainted with the game, having played it several times in his childhood, but he also knew all the tactics required to win the game. As such, any team that Il-nam found himself in would have an advantage over their opposition. That said, he did cut it close though, because although his tactics gave his team an upper hand in the battle, It was Cho Sang-woo's ingenious plan that eventually won them the game. This takes us to the marble game. Firstly, the fact that Il-nam could recognize the setting of the marble game was a strong clue that he, in fact, designed the game. When you think about it, what are the odds that the game's designers would have randomly selected Il-nam's childhood neighborhood as the setting for the game if they didn't have any say in the game's design? Apart from this, it also appears that the marble game was supposed to be Il-nam's exit point from the Squid Game all along. Why do we think so? Well, for starters, he gave up the game, allowing Gi-hun to win and move to the next round. And as we later found out, even though we heard a gunshot, we never saw Il-nam's dead body because he was never shot. But from the look of things, Il-nam was probably never supposed to be in the game. Recall that when the contestants were asked to pair up, there was always going to be one person left out. Il-nam, being the oldest of the contestants, was expected to be that person, and that would have been the case if not for Gi-hun's large heart. The odd one turned out to be number 212, who surprisingly was not killed. So why did Il-nam choose to leave at this point? Well, it was because of the next game, the bridge game. This was by far the riskiest game for Il-nam. Make one wrong step and he would have fallen to his death, or if he didn't end up being the last person in the game, he could have been pushed to his death by one of the other contestants. More so, no thanks to his dementia, he probably would have forgotten the right order of steps to take even if the tempered glass were revealed to him. So it made more sense to quietly get out of the game before the bridge game, which is exactly what he did. Il-nam's season-ending twist was absolutely unexpected. But looking back at the series of clues the writer gave us throughout the course of the season, it all makes sense. And, you know, it might be worth watching the series again just to see how everything fits. Click on this video right now to watch 15 other things you missed while watching Squid Game, and click on this video to get a behind-the-set look on how the show was made. Catch you guys in the next video. Netflix Master, out.